In this video, we will experiment with primitive variables, how to declare them, how to use them. So we already covered the topic in theory, but in this video, it will be a demo, a small practical. So we have our main class file, we have the public static void main method. Now we can write some code in this method and we can run it. So let's declare a couple of primitive variables, which is basically byte, boolean, integer, float, not the reference variable. So let's start with a Boolean variable maybe. How do we declare a Boolean variable? We simply write, so you see this is the functionality of IDE, the auto completion that we are getting. So we can simply select it or we can type it. It's up to us. Name of the Boolean variable. So let's name it myvar and let's assign a value of false. So in Java, Boolean variables can only have two values, true or false. So let's name the variable false var. And similarly, let's have another Boolean variable with name. So in Java, in the same scope, we cannot have duplicate variables, even if they belong to the same type. So here you see we already declared a Boolean variable with the name false var. And now if we try to declare another variable with the same name, then also compiler won't allow it. That's why there is an error. You see, in IDE, we can see the errors right away. So let's rename it true and assign it the value true. Now let's create another Boolean variable ABC, and you see in Java, because Java is a strongly typed language, the type is fixed as soon as we give it here. So now the compiler knows that the value must be Boolean and we cannot assign it any other value. So if we decide to, let's say, initialize it with an integer value, then it's not allowed. So we cannot do that. Similarly, let's create a character variable, a char. So let's name it character and let's initialize it with maybe C or D. So in Java, the statement must end with semicolon and characters are defined using the single quote. Here we have the character variable now coming to int. Let's create an integer variable and give it some value 10. Now if we define a long variable, that's a pretty huge. We give it some value this. Okay. Similarly, float. Another decimal value 2.5, let's say. And let's try to print it. System.out.println false var separated by true var. So there is a shortcut in IDE in IntelliJ. So if I simply type s out and hit enter, it will just write the system.out.println so that I don't have to type the whole thing again and again. So let's print the character value. Let's print the integer value amount separated by a pretty huge number, which is long. Okay. And similarly with float values, this separated by comma and another decimal value. Okay. Let's now run it. So we see some errors here. It says that incompatible types, possible lossy conversion from double to float. The reason is all the decimal values are by default treated as double in Java. So to declare a float variable, we have to tell the compiler explicitly that we want to create a float variable. And to do that, we have to provide or write an F after the number. Now, if we run the same program again, we get the correct output. So we see false, true, character D, integer, long value. 1.3 is the float value. We don't see the F here. It's just for the compiler when we are declaring the variable. And 2.5, which is basically the double variable. So that's how we declare primitive variables. Just one more thing that I wanted to cover. Uh, the comma in double quotes here in system.out.println statements. So what exactly this is? So consider this. The argument of println is a string, and this is basically a string concatenation. So we can concatenate multiple values because this is a variable. We can directly pass it in the method. But if we have to write something else, concatenate some string value, then it must be in double quotes. And to concatenate, we use plus. So we are saying print this value plus concatenate comma and then concatenate another value. So the result is whatever the result is will be printed on the console. So here you can see we have given some spaces before and after plus, but that's not the part of output. Whatever we give inside double quotes, that will be treated as a string and that will be the part of output. So for example, even if we give some more spaces here, it's not going to impact the output. Let's see. You see there is no difference, but whatever we change inside the double quotes, that is some value, some string value that we are passing, that will be concatenated to the final value, and that thing we will see the output on the console. So you see, that is the difference between that's how we basically concatenate different values, different string values, and in order to print it or maybe some other operation. So I hope it's clear how to use primitive variables. In the next lessons, we will see reference variables and how to use them.